Hello, everybody. It's Mitchell Lee alongside Brandon too, and thank you for not turning us off as soon as you heard A to start the Godfather. I promise we will give you more insightful commentary than that. Uh, Brandon, this is a big one here. The IMDb top 250, any top 250, you're going to get these two movies very high as we start our Francis Ford Coppola watch. He just premiered a new movie at the Cannes Film Festival, and I'm not hearing particularly good things about it. It was entirely self-funded, and he hasn't made a movie in quite a long time. So let's return to the glory days, the 1970s, where Francis Ford Coppola was making some of the best movies that anyone had ever seen.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Honestly, he might be the goat of these long movies, and just the way he directs. I mean, it's just so good. We can get into it a little bit farther, but I mean, The Godfather and really the whole trilogy. But these first two movies
Well,
are
I
exceptional. Like, I really think he actually nailed the trilogy, but
I've
that's just me.
have you seen part 3?
No, so I've seen like half of it, and I need to finish it. But I think the first half of part three is not as bad. I mean, I think part three is good. I mean, I know people have their opinions about part three, but I think part three is good for what I've seen so
I've
far.
never
So maybe
seen
I
it,
need to finish it
and
and then have an actual opinion. But
I've heard nothing but it's like a
yeah,
B minus type movie, which isn't bad, but when you compare it to The Godfather and The Godfather
sure,
Part 2, it's like a major step down. But
that's a
at the
fair
same
point.
time, I've never seen it, and we'll get to it, but this is not the time for part 3. We've got part 1 and part 2, which on the IMDb top 250, The
Right.
Godfather is number 2, and The
Yeah, that
Godfather
makes
2
sense.
is number 4. Pretty high up,
Well,
Brandon.
we'll see. We'll see where they fall in our rankings on our list. But spoiler, they're pretty high.
Have
So
you looked at the Letterbox top 50?
no, I haven't. What's the letterbox?
Letterbox has part 2 above part 1. They have part 2 at number 5 and
Not.
part
I'm
1
not
at
like
number
totally against
9.
that.
And I don't really like to have these types of conversations with strangers, but when they present themselves, sure, why not? Um, I was at Regal the other day. I think it was when I was going to see Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and the guy every now and then their name tags will have like their favorite movie of all time on it, and the
Oh,
guy
nice.
said his favorite
Yeah.
movie was Godfather 2. So I asked him, I
Oh.
said, so why Godfather 2 over the first one? And he basically said that he liked seeing Michael operate with the being the head of the family, and that's kind of what intrigued him the most. But also getting to see part of you know Vito and getting his start in America and that type of thing, kind of getting the juxtaposition of the two. Um, because I think that there's a lot of similarities between part 1 and part 2 and kind of the way that they play with things. But let's go ahead and start
Hmm.
with part 1, and I have to say this before we talk about one of the greatest movies of all time. We have to talk about a mini series that I feel like no one has seen, but it's fantastic. Have you seen The Offer on Paramount Plus by chance?
But I haven't. But I've heard awesome things about it. In terms of, wasn't it the? It's basically about the writing of it or the screenplay. Is what I've heard. You can
No,
correct me and kind of go
it's
farther,
about
but is that kind of what it's about? Like
it's a,
it's
no, it's about how truly
is there a good way
difficult
to explain it?
this movie was to make, because they actually faced opposition from like Frank Sinatra and members of the mob because they thought that it would give them a bad reputation, and they had backing from people with power, and also just making this movie with Paramount was incredibly difficult because of that, because they had a lot of unknowns. It was it's a fantastic miniseries, and it's about Al Ruddy, who
Yeah.
actually just died last week. And he's kind of the main character,
Mm.
played by Miles Teller. He's kind of the one trying to put this all together. And obviously, we know that The Godfather ended up being a big success story, but it just took so much to make this thing. I mean, they had problems with the Italian American Civil Rights League. It was insane, but it ended up being one of the most
Oh,
successful movies of
it's
all
about the
time.
development. Sorry, it's about the development of Coppola's like
Yeah,
movie, basically, right? Okay, okay, yeah. No, no, that's what. Okay, I've heard other podcasts talk about it.
it's
And
really
one
good.
podcast I listen to, I'll just whatever. I'll just shout it out. Ryan Russillo has said that like he really likes that miniseries. So so yeah, I've heard good things about it. So that's awesome. I might take a look at it, even though now that I'm kind of upset that Albert Rudy Rudy passed away.
Yeah, well, he
That's
was like
that's kind of
93,
upsetting.
so he
Yeah, but
he
still,
lived a very full
that's a little.
life. Um, uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but this is we're gonna start with The Godfather. Directed by Francis Ford Coppola, written by Mario Puzo, which it's based on his book. And it has
Yep.
just an amazing cast. Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, James Caan, Richard Castellano, Robert Duvall, Sterling Hayden, uh, Diane Keaton, um, Abe Vigoda, Talia Shire. It's got a very big cast, and some of them the name might sound more familiar. Like for example, Talia Shire might not be a name that you know off the top of your head, but she was Adrian in the Rocky movies. A lot of people might recognize her as from that franchise. And this movie made, now they didn't keep track of box office stats as precisely as they do today. So they say this movie made between 250 and 291 million dollars, which is a pretty big discrepancy. But that's also 1972, 250,
That's also a
291
massive
million.
amount of
Yeah,
money.
yeah. This movie did.
Yeah. Do you have that? Do you have the? Uh, do you have that calculated for inflation? Do you have
I
those
do not,
numbers? Like
but it
if
would have
you
been
don't? Okay.
a massive hit. And this movie also won. Movie won 3 Oscars. It was not the movie that won the
But none of
most.
the Oscars you think that should have won, like the Oscars that should
No,
have
no, no,
won.
no, no, because it's
That's the
still
funny thing.
it. Cabaret won 8 that year, but that also had musical
Okay. Yeah.
numbers and more extravagant like art direction and that type of thing than The
Yeah.
Godfather
Yeah.
did. So it won a lot of those technical awards. But The Godfather did win Best Picture that year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Francis Ford Coppola didn't win Best Director. Bob
No,
Fosse
that's the
won
one where
for
I'm kind of weird about it.
the one that I'm weird about, and we'll get into further as we talk about the story, is Marlon Brando won for
What did
Best
Bob
Actor.
Fosse?
Cabaret.
Okay, Brando. Oh yeah, right. Okay, Cabaret, and then Brando won Best Actor, right, instead of
And
Al.
declined it. He didn't show up. He
Oh,
declined it. That was the one where he had a Native American woman accept on his behalf, and you had John Wayne acting like a dumbass. That one. If you don't know about it,
okay.
look
Well,
it up. It's
guess I gotta go Google the video now
yeah.
to go see it. That's
But
kind of
best
crazy.
supporting actor again. I have not seen Cabaret. I've heard it's good, but I haven't seen it, so I can't judge positively or negatively. But The
Hmm.
Godfather had 3 actors nominated for Best Supporting Actor. It had James Caan, Robert Duvall, and Al Pacino, and all of them lost to Joel Grey in Cabaret, which is insane to me.
Joel Gray must have killed it if
Hey
he beat
man,
out those three.
yeah, because I don't think Al Pacino should have been a supporting. I think he's the lead in this movie, and this might go against
100% agree.
some unwritten rule or written rule. It might be a constitutional law, um, to never question Marlon Brando's greatness, and he is great in this movie. But if I had my personal choice between Al Pacino or Marlon Brando to give an
I'm
actor a Best Actor Oscar, I'm going with Pacino. I think he's the heart and soul
Uh,
of this movie and the heart and soul of this
yeah.
franchise.
So let's just get into it because it. I mean, oh, I'm putting out spoilers. At this point, I mean, if you haven't seen the movie, what are we doing?
It came out 52
Um,
years ago. So,
yeah, yeah. So if you haven't seen the movies and you want to see it without spoilers, then please probably turn off the
it's also
podcast right
tough to
now. I
avoid
hate
spoilers
I
for
hate
a
to say
movie
that.
that
Yeah,
this
it
this
is.
popular from that long ago.
Yeah,
It's like if
exactly.
somehow you've
So
managed to avoid knowing that Luke is Darth Vader's kid in Empire Strikes Back,
that's
then
amazing.
like
If you've done that,
sorry,
that's
I don't
amazing.
know someone out there's like, you gotta be kidding me. I haven't gotten to that
Yeah,
one
there's
yet.
somebody. Yeah, yeah. But I say all that to say, I mean, Marlon Brando isn't in the movie that much. He gets shot, he goes to the hospital, he lies around for three-fourths of the movie. Don't get me wrong. The first 40 minutes where he's in the house negotiating with people on his daughter's wedding day, I mean, that's incredible work.
Yeah.
That my Marlon Brando is absolutely killing it then. But to say he's the lead of this movie is literally just because he's the head of the Corleone family. It's he's not really the lead of the
It's
movie.
because he's the
He's not
head.
in the movie for three-fourths of the
It's
movie.
because he's the head, and it's because it's easy to forget because Al Pacino, what Al Pacino becomes after this movie, and
Sure.
the level of the great movies that he kept churning out in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and then he also made Jack and Jill. But Marlon Brando was the big name guy in this, and Al Pacino
Oh
was
yeah,
very
yeah.
much I don't necessarily want to say an unknown, but he was kind of an up and
But he's
comer.
like the up and coming. Yeah, he's the up and coming actor. No, I'm fine with Brando like getting the lead like nomination and winning, but I he's not the lead of this movie. This movie doesn't work if Al Pacino is not great as Michael
And
Corleone. Like the movie just flat out does not
you
work.
have to buy okay, because what this movie is about for those of you that don't know, Vito Corleone or Don Vito Corleone, played by Marlon Brando, is the head of the Corleone crime family, and uh, you've got the five families in New York, and it's kind of it's peaceful, but you can also tell that there's a little bit of there's some beef, maybe some unsettled beef going on.
There's some
The
tension there.
vibes aren't
Yeah, the
aren't
vibes are
right
off.
to quote kids these days. And it starts off at was it Talia Shire? Was it her wedding? Um yeah,
Yes, yes.
she's marrying this just like piece of shit dude. Um and it's this big extravagant wedding, and at this wedding,
As only Italians can do.
hey man, that is nothing but positivity here cuz that wedding looked like a great time. They
Yes,
were
yes.
doing it right. But during this time, there's a lot of people that want to speak to the Godfather, and they're like, hey, I've got this going on. The movie opens up with the famous scene of like, you come to my I feel like any accent I do is gonna just piss people off. So yeah, I'll maybe avoid that. But you come to me on my wife's wedding day and you ask me to do murder. Look, you had this thing go on with your daughter, and we'll get it taken care of, but I'm gonna call on you to do something at some point. Maybe that day won't ever come, and you're just immediately intrigued because of kind of the back and forth between these people, the power that this guy holds just from the opening scene, the way people talk to him. You know that this is a guy that gets shit done, and that if you're in business with
Yeah.
him, that good things are going to happen for you, and that you want to be on this guy's good side because not only do you want to avoid being on his bad side, but he's also someone that takes care of his own.
True. I was gonna say good things or bad things, depending on what side of the line you are with him.
Hmm.
But but yeah, yeah, he gets stuff done, and loyalty is huge for him, and respect.
Yeah.
Respect is what matters.
Hmm.
And there's a great line where it's like, "You come into my home, you disrespect me. You're not even asking as a friend. You're just asking. You don't even call me Godfather." And
When
then
yeah,
you
like
know the
when's the
guy,
last time like we shared a meal together or something like that? And then it's
right?
like,
I'm
okay,
the
I like this.
I'm the godfather to your son, and you like refuse to like bring me into your home for even like coffee.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, this guy like he just is not messing around
But
right
he
now.
also
And then like
understood
the great facial scene, like I was talking to you about,
the
like he
facial
like
scene.
scratches his face. Yeah, like the facial stuff is like hilarious too. Not even hilarious. It's just like it's very dramatic, and some of the shots, like the opening scene and the opening shot of like over the shoulder, you see Marlon Brando's like, I guess like puffy cheeks because he's a little bit like bigger. He's eating well, as he should. You know, the Don should eat well. But man, it is so good, and I think that's the biggest thing. And what I guess one of my favorite lines was it was either Hagen, his consigliere, or one of the guests that was coming to talk to him. They said, "Well, it's his daughter's wedding day. He's Sicilian. He can't refuse. Like if I come to him with something, he can't be like no, because it's like a tradition. Like he has to say yes on his daughter's wedding day. So that's why everyone's coming to his like
Ah.
coming to him and being like, can you talk to, like, can you do this for
Mhm.
me, because they're basically trapping him in being like, it's your daughter's wedding day, you have to say yes.
Mhm.
um so I think that's funny. I might be mixing it up with part two or part one. I think that's in part one. It might be in part
I don't
two, but I'm
remember it
pretty
from
sure that's in
part
part
2.
one.
Again, I
Yeah, I
also
don't remember from part two, but that's such a great line, and it kind of like brings you into like, okay, this is a Sicilian family, which has like its Italian traditions, and like, you know, the big extravagant wedding with the Italian traditions and all that stuff. Like this movie is about family. Like like not to make fun of Fast and Furious, but like you can very much feel that this is about family. Whereas like Fast and Furious, it's like they kind of have to like nail that in
yeah,
sometimes. Like,
they don't say
oh,
it.
it's about
You
family.
don't have
Yeah,
everyone like
they
turning
don't
to the
say it's about
camera and
family.
being like, "Family." You know, like it kind of speaks
Right,
for
exactly.
itself as far as this particular
Right,
story
that's what
goes.
I was getting at.
Um
Right, yeah.
One of the other great things about the beginning is you get Michael talking to his girlfriend, Kay Adams, who I just couldn't help but thinking of like the Good Morning Football host. Uh, uh it's just named the
She does good
yeah,
work.
no, exactly. No, she does fantastic work, but they have the exact same name, so that's not a very common name. Um, but Michael's kind of talking like, look, I know what my dad does. I'm familiar with it, but it's not my world. It's not something that I really want to get mixed up in. I have other plans for my life. He just, you know, he's a war hero. And you know, he's just kind of happy being away from that business. Meanwhile, you have this deal with this movie star Johnny Fontaine, and
Mm.
he's asking like, all right, I'm a popular singer, but I want to turn over to movies, which our good buddy Joshua Kornmeyer would be very upset with him for trying to do that. He's a very firm believer in the singers should not be actors thing, which, you know, I to an extent I get, but also Justin Timberlake in The Social Network. So, uh, but he's like, hey, the studio executive, he doesn't like me. I'm not going to get the role. Can you help me out here? And Vito's just like, you got to stop being such a bitch, man. Like, you have to act like a
Right.
man. But then they send the consigliere Hagen out, and you get it can be kind of tough watching a movie like this because you've heard, even if you haven't seen it, you've heard so many of the iconic lines, you know, so many of the iconic like references to things. So to see it actually in the movie, it can be kind of goofy if you're not going with it because you've seen it parodied so many times. I remember seeing a famous Super Bowl commercial that parodied the horse head scene, where the studio head is talking about, "Hey, I've got all these horses, and this is my like prize horse. She's the best, but they disrespect the consigliere. So this man wakes up with horse blood all over his bed sheets and the horse's head in there, and so he's like, all right, I guess I kind of have to agree to this deal because you're gonna keep killing my damn horses. Uh,
I mean, let's also put this into like into a box real quick. The horse is worth $600,000.
yeah,
He even makes a joke like you want to see any Russian czars or whatever, like world leaders buying a horse of this value.
mhm,
So they kill a prize racehorse, like just because like basically that producer disrespects Vito Corleone, disrespects the consigliere, and they're like, all right, like that's the game you want to play. I'm gonna make you an offer you can't refuse.
yeah.
And the offer is we're putting your horse's head in the bed with
And
you.
that's another scene where it's just the
Yeah.
direction, the cinematography, the way it takes its time, because this is a nearly 3 hour
Yep.
movie. And so you get a lot of plot points, but you also get a lot of shots that take their time and kind of work their way. They earn the
Yep.
tension that they get. This movie has a fantastic way of earning every single beat that it gets. And it really earns, you see the sun, sunrise, and then it kind of cuts through different parts of the estate, and then you get the bed, and he slowly kind of works his way down the bed, discovering different parts are covered with blood. It's exceptionally well done, and I think it's a
Yes.
moment that really shines because of Coppola's direction.
Yeah, I think that's Coppola's biggest strength is that he can let stuff breathe and he can kind of take his time with stuff. To be fair, I don't know if many other directors are going to be given 3 hours to shoot a mob crime movie. Um,
Well, Scorsese,
I just can't see this movie being made today unless it was Scorsese or Coppola making it,
yeah,
which is kind of my point. It's like a throwback to like we don't really care about making money, even though this movie made a ton of money. It's more about we'll give him 3 hours because it's Francis Ford Coppola, and yeah, I mean that's kind of wild in my opinion, but it's also what makes him great as a director, and it's what makes this movie great. Is I mean, we can kind of talk about that, but just the amount of shots where, like you said, it takes its time. It lets it breathe. It lets it build up tension and build up suspense inside of a shot, which is really hard to do as a director, but really hard to execute as like a whole movie, like with the cast and everyone else. Like that's a very hard thing to execute, and they execute that like technique at least 12 times in this movie from what I was counting. At least 12 times it's like, okay, wow, like those shots are like they're really taking their time with this, and like I think that's his biggest, like I all the applause to him because like that's a really tough thing to do. um yeah, but we kind of go from that scene, and then I will say like the next 45 minutes are very much like building up the plot, like
you get to meet some of the
this is what's
players
gonna
that
happen,
are,
this is what's gonna,
yeah,
yeah,
you get
exactly.
to kind of meet Salazzo, who is kind of
Hmm.
the opposing force in a good chunk of this movie. It spends about a lot of the middle part of the movie. Salazzo is kind of like the opposition because he asks Don Vito, "Hey, um, I'm getting into the narcotics game, and I think it's something that's going to be really big, and you need to get your ass kind of don't let this pass you by. You need to get involved in it." And he Vito's like, "Hey, you do what you want to do, but I'm not going to get involved with that because I work with people that it would alienate some of the people that I work with politically, and
So yeah,
um
dirty. It's dirty. Like dirty money, dirty. Yeah,
yeah, and
I'm not into it.
yeah, but he also kind of is like, he seems very just opposed, even if he didn't have those connections, opposed to narcotics as a whole. Just like I'm not really looking to get mixed up in the drug game and that type of thing. And Salazzo is like, hey, I'm coming after everybody. Luca Brasi dies after he was sent on kind of like a, hey, can you go and just kind of see what's going on with the Tatalias? Um, which that's the family that Salazzo was working with. And he dies, and then they shoot Don Vito while he's getting fruit, Brandon. They shoot him to to
They gun him down on the
to
street.
quote the sheriff from Django Unchained, they shoot him like a dog in the street. And
Mm.
I did not expect that the first time I saw this movie. Let me tell you, that was a shock. I thought this movie was going to be like entirely about Don Vito, and to see that and he doesn't die, but to see the fact that this movie really wasn't about Don Vito the first time, and this was the second time I saw it. I saw it 10 years ago, loved it, but never really felt a desire to return to it. Maybe just because it's a really long investment, being a 3-hour movie. Um, but
Yeah, and the trilogy as a whole is a very long
it is,
investment as
it
well.
is.
So
But we see after that, Michael really starts to take after this idea of, I'm kind of the wild card here. No one expects me because I'm not involved with anything, but I am still a member of the family. Let me take care of this. And at first they kind of laugh at him. You got a Sonny.
I don't think they want him to
Yeah,
do
you
it,
got
to
you
be
got
honest,
Sonny, and he
right?
was talking about like, yeah, you're gonna go and spill your brains on your nice Ivy League suit. Get the hell out of it. Like they are really uh kind of just like, yeah, okay, whatever. But slowly but surely, Michael kind of, he talks a good game about how, this isn't business, or this isn't personal. It's just business. This is bad for business, so we need to go and take care of this. And I'm the only one that can do it without being incredibly obvious about it. So let's go and
Well,
let's get a gun planted. We're gonna get a meeting with this corrupt cop that punched me at the hospital when I was going to visit my dad. And he already had that really good moment at the hospital with that one guy, like, hey, go and pretend that you have a gun so that they'll just drive you
yeah, I was
by.
gonna say you skipped over a scene,
He
but
has
I
really good
should we talk about
instincts
that
for
scene?
this.
Should we talk about the scene where he like moves his father from the room because he realizes the guards are the cops who were sent to like watch his dad, and kind of like since he had been shot, since he had been shot, there's now a threat of like someone might come to finish the job, and then he sees that the cops who were sent to like protect his dad and like basically stand outside the door are gone missing, and he's like, oh no, like I figured out that this one cop, McCluskey, the captain, is involved as like they in the plot to basically kill his father. So he moves his father from the one room, kind of like hides him in one spot. He sees a killer, like a supposed killer, coming to the room to basically finish the job. He's not there, and then yeah, as you said, the scene where they're kind of standing outside, he's like kind of fake like you have a gun, so they kind of like deter these wannabe assassins from, or not wannabe, like they were coming to assassinate his father. It kind of deters them from stopping and going into the hospital because they're like, we don't want a gunfight out in the middle of the hospital. And then obviously, yeah, McCluskey comes up, and yeah, Michael straight up confronts him, is like, you're in on the plot to kill my father, it seems, because like you definitely told these cops to leave the room, or like to not even guard the room, and basically allow anyone to come in and shoot my father when he just got shot by somebody. So And then yeah, McCluskey did not take kindly to that. And then yeah, we get the scene with Michael talking to his family, and that's the biggest thing is we can kind of talk about this, Mitchell. How does Michael just like jump everyone in his family? He jumps Sonny, he jumps Fredo. Like he's not
Well,
the
it ain't hard
oldest.
to jump Fredo.
Guy just jumps. I mean, sure, it's not hard
We'll
to
get
jump
more to that
anyone,
in part
but
two, but yeah, it ain't hard to jump Fredo.
sure. But my point is like the Corleone family seems very traditional and very like the next man up is the oldest son, but like it's not the case in this movie. It's not the case in this plot. Like the next man up is not the oldest son. I mean, he definitely like takes the family business by the balls, and, like grabs it by the balls and like
Well,
runs with
first
it.
of
So
all,
I yeah
we'll get to kind of why it's a little easier here in a bit, but yeah, that's the thing.
yeah yeah
He just kind of once he's in, he's like, there's no dipping my toe in the water. I'm gonna just
oh this man jumps in the
I'm
deep end.
balls deep in this. You know, there's no
Right right
there's no hey,
right.
let me just kind of mess around for a little bit. No, you're immediately killing police captains and opposing family members in public, which is what happens in the
In a
scene.
restaurant,
Yeah,
yeah,
which is
absolutely
one of
wild.
my favorite scenes in movie history is them talking about kind of okay, how we're going to go about this. You need to go and I need to have a gun planted for me. Do it in this bathroom and this little area here, and I'm gonna go and get it. And after you ask to use the bathroom, don't just go. And then kind of how to carry yourself. You're gonna kind of get rid of the gun like this. You're gonna walk out this way, and they're kind of teaching him almost like how to be a member of this family almost. And once he gets that direction, he just takes it and runs with it. And he does exactly that.
Well,
He executes it perfectly. That little flip of the gun, almost kind of reminds me of like Jose Bautista. That the he has his little like gun flip thing. Um, and
it's one of the best bat flips of all
it's
time.
yeah,
Yeah, he just does like one of the greatest gun flips of all time. He's like, yeah, just kill this guy, walk it off. Let's go.
exactly.
Like I just don't.
Yeah, it's a fantastic scene, and it really lets you know that okay, Al Pacino's not in this to just get, hey, let me help out with one thing because they tried to kill my dad, and once I do that, I'll be out. It's like, no, I
No,
am
he
in.
well he knows as soon as he kills McCluskey, especially. I mean, take Salazzo out of it. Like I don't really think Salazzo matters that much. I mean, he does because he's the head of a
I
family, or
think he
he's the
did
Turk.
because he
So
had
he
big
does matter,
ambitions.
but sure, sure, but the real person can. I mean, if you're gonna kill a police captain like that, like you're basically he was labeled as like a cop killer, and like every cop in New York is looking for
Well,
him.
and also that had a lot of
So
that was something that kind of caused the five families to come together and be like, hey, so there's a lot of heat on all of us now that a police captain is dead. So we
which by the way, he was
yeah,
dirty.
he
So
was, but that it was also like, hey, don't don't kill the guy. So Michael
we all
goes
know he was dirty
yeah,
too. Yeah, it's like
Mike
we all know he was dirty.
Michael goes to Sicily to kind of lay low. And during all of this, while Michael is gone, things just kind of go to hell where
Yeah, it becomes a war, right? I
it
mean, it
it
basically becomes a
it
war.
really does become a war. Sonny dies because he's trying bringing it back to earlier Talia Shire, Connie, her husband is beating her like a drum just every night, even after uh Sonny came and beat the hell out of him and told him, hey, don't do
I
this
mean,
again
he beat
publicly
him in the street,
like a
almost
dog in
killed
the
him,
street. Yes,
basically. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and it keeps going on. So he's like, all right, I'm going to kill this dude. But he's ambushed and he dies. He's shot on the highway and he's killed. Um, they try to kill Michael, because they figure out that he's in Sicily and he's married. He married this girl Apollonia who's like 15 or something, which okay. Um
I mean, I don't think she's that young, but
she
yes, yes.
wasn't maybe, I don't know. Um but they try to kill him with a car bomb and they get Apollonia instead. They don't get Michael. And so um that was all. What did you think about the Italy scenes?
That was very that was a very extravagant car bomb, by the
It
way.
was,
It was
yeah.
really well executed.
Well, it wasn't well executed. They didn't kill the guy they wanted to kill.
Well, no, it didn't kill the guy they wanted to kill, but good that it went off as soon as she turned the key. Um, I, I like the Italy scenes. I think it gives you a little bit of a different vibe, but it kind of splits the movie into two, and that's where I'm okay with it. But it definitely very much so is almost this is what's happening in America with the five families, and this is what's happening in Sicily with Michael. And it's almost two separate plot lines. It's like an A plot and a B plot, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it just gives you a different vibe, and I think it does help the 3 hour runtime to kind of give you a different look at something else. Because, and to Coppola's credit, I'm sure he was thinking about this. It's really hard to sit in a dark, like scenic, not scenic, a dark scened New York with these five families. And like those families are interesting and the plot's interesting and stuff. But I think it'd be really hard to sit there for 3 hours and be like, let's make this entire movie about the five families of New York and like what's going on in New York. I think you needed a little bit of a break by having Michael go to Sicily. So I really liked the Italian scenes. I was wondering how you like the scenes in Italy in Sicily.
I like it a lot because it also does a very good job
Yeah.
of making you feel like Michael feels, where it's like, I'm
Mhm.
here.
He's isolated.
Yes. It makes you feel isolated, but also you have this feeling of like, I'm here and I feel like there are things going on there that I need to be a part of, but I'm also trying my best to find happiness in a life here. And he it's very the opposite of what he was doing with the crime world, where he kind of had one foot in Italy, one foot in America, because he was always asking questions about things. And it it just felt like he never could quite commit all the way to he wanted to be happy with Apollonia and all that, but he still kind of felt on edge that someone was looking for him. And then he was right, and Apollonia dies, so he has to come back to Italy. And I thought that that all came along very. Sometimes when you have something like that, where it's like almost like a side quest, where it's like I have to go to Italy to do this, it can feel very herky jerky, and this felt very natural. And I liked that about it. Um, but then after that, Vito has a meeting, and he's like, "Look, guys, there's uh,
This is a phenomenal scene, by the way. The
yeah."
meeting where he's like talking. Yeah, phenomenal
He's like,
scene.
"Look, I'm just tired of all this death, and I don't want things to escalate even more. So I'm do what you guys are gonna do with the narcotics. I'm not gonna, come after you for the death of my oldest kid. But let let's just be cool."
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, he basically like buries the hatchet. He's like, if you allow Michael to come back with no harm done to him, I won't basically avenge Sonny's death. Which, by the way, he had full right to basically go scorch earth and try to kill as many people as he wanted to. Because to be fair, the five families very much whoever was involved disrespected his family disrespected him by killing his son, basically ambushing him
Mhm.
and just killing his son. And I think there was like almost an unwritten rule between the five families. Like, yes, we are competing against each other. Yes, we are doing all these things, and we are enemies.
But there's lines we
But
don't
we don't.
cross.
Yeah, we don't cross the lines and like kill each other's. like members and stuff like that. And to be fair, Michael already crossed that line by killing Salazzo, but Salazzo also tried to
Yeah,
kill Vito
yeah.
himself. So I really think Vito had a point where he could have tried to avenge Sonny's death, but I do love the line where he goes, "I won't cross this line. I'll bury the hatchet of vengeance, but if Michael dies by a strike of lightning, random stroke, heart attack, like if he dies at all, like I will be coming back and killing people in this room." And he basically was like looking at people in the room going like, you will die, and you will die." Like if Michael is like basically dead. And so I find that fascinating. And I forget what one of the family members it was. I wish I like thought about this. I probably should have wrote it down. What family member or the other part of the families, what head of the family goes like, well, how can we trust his word? How can we
I
think that he's not going to like enact this vengeance? I forget who it was, but that is such a good line from him. And then yeah, Vito basically looks him dead in the eyes and goes, "Excuse me? Like how dare you like question me? Like I could have killed you already," is what he's basically
yeah,
saying. Like if I really wanted
you'd
to,
be dead.
I could stand up right now and shoot you in the head. But like I'm not going
Hmm.
to. Like I'm trying to put this behind me because there's way too much violence. Yeah, that's probably the last pivotal scene of the movie because
I
there
disagree.
is like other scenes. Well, okay,
I
that's that. Yeah,
disagree
that's the
so
point.
much. I mean, you've got some.
I guess yeah, that's
I mean,
true.
you've got
Yeah.
Fredo doing this stuff with Mo Green in
Well,
Nevada,
I
which
was gonna
sets
say
up a lot of
with
part two.
sure. Well, I was gonna say when I say pivotal, I guess I mean like involving the five families, in terms of
Again,
like
I disagree
the
so much.
but
Maybe
I don't know.
because
Go
because
ahead,
you've
go
also
ahead.
got okay, so Michael comes back and he's like, all right, well, I guess I'm not married to
Yeah,
Apollonia anymore, so I'm getting back with Kay Adams, who I haven't seen in years. um so we're just gonna go ahead and start having you getting
that's
married,
a terrible
getting
decision on Kay's fault,
yeah,
but
no,
whatever.
I feel bad for Kay for a lot of these movies, but also if she had just not done that, then none of it would have happened. Um, especially because yeah, she didn't like it, it was just a very strange situation for her. Um, but they have kids, they get married, and uh, Michael kind of assumes the position of the head of the family because Fredo's a fucking idiot. But he's also in he's doing more of that in part two. He's doing his stuff in Nevada. Sonny is dead, and so Michael is very clearly the best fit one to lead this. Um,
I mean, Vito definitely sends Fredo to Nevada because he wants
I
Michael
I
to
kind of
take.
got that vibe too. It's like, yeah, you
Yeah,
should go do shit. What do we have for him to do? Go to Vegas. Yeah, go to Vegas. You know, Viva Las
the
Vegas. Yeah,
gambling stuff, gambling stuff.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
you should go
please.
you should go do that. And then he finds out that he was with talking, and they have a great conversation about kind of not wanting that he didn't really want this kind of life for Michael. I thought that that was a fantastic conversation
Hmm.
between. I mean, Al Pacino and Marlon Brando get a shockingly low amount of screen time together in this movie,
I
but when they
know.
do, it's magic. And because these are two guys at the
Yeah,
top of their
I
game, and they have a
yeah.
great scene together, and they talk about hey, it was Don Barzini that opened that ordered the hit on Sonny, and that um he's gonna try to have you killed. So whoever suggests that you take a meeting with him is trying to stab you in the back and it's not have your best interests in mind, and that's uh yeah, a traitor of sorts. So we kind of have more negotiations and stuff being talked about with
Well, who's the traitor?
well, yeah, Abe Vigoda.
Just go ahead and say
Abe
it.
Vigoda.
Yeah.
But before that gets dealt with, um, you kind of have a little bit of the first scene of Michael being kind of the Michael that we'll see in part two, where he's telling Fredo never take sides against the family. Okay, I can't have that shit. Don't take sides. You might agree with Mo Green on something, but never take sides against the family. And it was very much like, all right, we're getting like the progression of Michael at the beginning of the movie to Michael at the end of the movie. This arc is incredible. Um,
Mhm.
and then Vito dies. Vito dies in a of a heart attack playing with his kid in like a tomato garden or something like that. He just falls over and dies. And again, not what I expected when I first watched this. I thought that this guy was gonna, if he was gonna go down, he was gonna get shot by somebody. But he's an older guy, so he dies of a heart attack.
Well,
Um,
he did recover from massive gunshot
yes, he did.
wounds,
Yes, he
and
did.
probably was yes. So
Then
it is kind of shocking to see him just like keel over from like a heart attack or whatever the case was. It is kind of
and
shocking.
then
But keep going.
when you say that nothing big happens,
That's
the
okay.
end of
That's
this
true.
movie is the most.
The ending
I
is the biggest thing.
I
That is true.
am
I agree.
the new king shit
But I think we're
around
building
here.
up to the ending, right?
Yes,
Am I not kidding? Am I wrong in saying that the meeting with the five families happens, and then a lot of stuff happens in between? But we're basically building to that
we're
last
building to
moment.
that,
Is
and
what
we're
we're
also
doing.
kind of setting things up with the Nevada stuff for part two. Um,
Hmm.
so, but we're basically the whole thing is building up. Michael is the new guy. That's
He's the Don.
everything that you need to know in that like 30 minutes leading up to it is, hey, Michael is becoming, again, no dipping the toe in. He's in all the way.
Right.
And
I
while
I love those 30 minutes, but you could show the five meeting. You could show the five families meeting. You could show the ending scene, and you would probably be set up for Godfather Part Two.
but at,
I mean, I hate to see it. I hate to say that, but like, I love the 40, 30 minutes in between. But really, you could show those two scenes and you'd be set
but at the
because
end
those two scenes are so
you've
powerful.
got
Are so powerful.
at this you're at this baptism of Connie's kid. Um and
Which, how does she have a kid with that guy?
yeah, I don't know, but Michael's just standing there. He's the kid's godfather, and you see all of these murders taking place because Corleone is killing the
Mm.
heads. You know, Vito might have agreed to peace. Michael is not Vito. He is going after everyone, and the heads of the five families are all killed. Mo Green is killed. Uh, Abe Vigoda is killed, and
He wipes out 8 or 9
he
people.
said, I'm tired of messing with y'all, and I don't want to have to
Yeah.
worry about any of you people. So this is ending. This is it's done. Um, and also, uh, he has that whole thing of like, no, we're gonna have Carlo. He's gonna be exiled. He's not gonna be murdered. And then Clemenza just comes out and strangles his ass. Uh, which was the only end for that character. That they weren't just gonna let him keep beating up on their sister.
Oh, for people who don't know, Carlo is
Yeah,
Connie's husband,
abusive
who's a
husband.
POS.
Um, and then
Yes.
Connie's like, "Hey, did you have anything to do with this?" And he just lies and says no. Um, and Kay does the same thing because Kay's like, "Hey, basically, who am I involved with now?" And he's like, "Don't you ever ask me about this?" But he denies that he had anything to do with it. And then the movie ends.
Maybe he didn't.
I
Maybe. I
bullshit.
mean,
And then no, come on, no, nothing in that family is getting done without Michael signing Michael's seal of approval. No. Um,
sure,
and
sure.
then you get, hey, these guys come in, Don Corleone, the door shuts on Kay, and the movie's over. I
Well,
love this movie so much. It's
yeah,
a
yeah.
classic, man.
The ending scene is almost saying Michael's like, "Okay, you asked me. I said no. Time to move on to the next." thing of business. Like, I'm actually gonna leave the office now, and we're gonna conduct business. And cut. And it's just like that's just so incredible. Yeah, this movie's awesome. Very high grade for me. I didn't put it in letterbox yet, so I guess you haven't seen my
What is
grade.
it?
But very high grade.
Give it to me, Brandon.
A plus. A plus, obviously.
Yes.
93.1.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
All
this
right.
movie.
I did not
This
expect
movie's
that
awesome.
because now I have to be the bad guy, only coming in at
Uh
90.07.
yeah, whatever. I mean, that's
It's
really close.
it's it's the second best movie that we've talked about behind The Shawshank Redemption. In my opinion.
Right.
I love this movie so
It's
much. It's a classic. It's a classic.
Is it higher than Dune Part 2 for you?
I need to watch Dune 2 because remember, I don't really etch my movies in stone until I can see them at home, kind of removed from the Lincoln Squarification of
From
things.
the glitz and the
Exactly. Yeah.
glam.
Once I can kind of see, all
Yeah.
right, is this a good movie or is this just a good theater going experience? That's kind of I haven't done that yet. So
What is your Dune 2 ranking
right
though?
now, right this second before I've done that,
Yes.
it is at a 92.12. I'm very, very
Okay,
high, so
so
it is a little higher,
so
but it
I'm
maybe
I'm a
doesn't stay
little
that way.
higher on Dune Part 2. I'm at a 94.3 on Dune
Woo!
Part 2 and a 93.1 on The
Alright.
Godfather. So I think we're in the same ballpark in terms of like where these movies are compared to each other. This isn't a movie about Doom Part Two, even though it could be. Sorry, this isn't a podcast about Doom Part Two, but yes, The Godfather is just incredible. I 100% understand why it's in the top 5 of greatest movies of all time. It's gonna be in my top 10
It's certainly on my,
for the rest of history. I honestly don't know if it's gonna get like pushed out of the top 10. Like that's how good this movie
it's in
is.
my
This movie
it's in
is
my
so good.
Mitchell Lee Movie Appreciation Hall of Fame on Letterboxd, so,
Yes, as it should be.
um,
As it should
we're
be.
gonna spend a little bit less time on Godfather 2, um, but I think okay, because God
There's a
there's a
lot.
lot. 1974, Godfather Part 2, kid, 2-year turnaround on this thing, really impressive. Um,
I mean, did they kind of shoot Godfather 2 like
no,
as
no,
they're
no,
shooting
no, no,
Godfather?
no.
Because I could see
No, they
that.
did not do that.
Oh, they
No.
weren't. Oh, that's crazy. Kind of.
And
Okay.
Coppola did 2 movies in 1974. We will get to one of them here soon. It's called The Conversation with Gene Hackman, and then he also did Godfather
Is
Part
all this
2.
before? Is all this before
Yes,
Apocalypse Now?
Apocalypse Now is 79. So this was all before
Okay,
Apocalypse Now.
that
This
makes
won
sense.
Best Picture. Coppola won his Best Director Oscar for this. Robert De Niro won Best
Yes.
Supporting
Well,
Actor for his role as Vito Corleone, who I think was the first person to win an Oscar for playing someone that had already
yes, I
won.
mentioned that before.
Yes, yes, you did. Kind of like Joaquin
Yes,
Phoenix and Heath Ledger with the Joker. Um, this movie won 6 Oscars and was nominated for 11, so it performed better at the Academy Awards than the first one did. Again, it also won
well,
best adapted screenplay, and it won best score and best art
let's
direction.
be real. Let's be real about the Academy right now. The Academy was definitely looking at this and going, no matter your feelings about Cabaret, in Cabaret I haven't seen either, so that might be a phenomenal movie. It might be amazing,
Probably is.
but I imagine the Academy was sitting here going, "Wow, we really we really screwed over Coppola by not giving him Best Director first time around. We kind of have to give him to him with Part
Well,
Two."
luckily,
And same
it's
thing with
just as good of
other
a
films. I
directing
mean,
job because sometimes they'll do that
no, it
and they'll
is, it
reward
is.
something like I love DiCaprio in The Revenant, but if you were to ask me like my top 5 DiCaprio performances, that's not in there. As much as I love it.
Right, but that was like almost a lifetime
Correct.
achievement
Yeah.
award for him. Yeah,
This movie
but
does it does this thing where it spends most of its time in Nevada with Michael Corleone, but it also uh cuts in some of Vito Corleone's early life. So I say let's talk about that stuff first because I think we can knock that out kind of
sure.
quickly.
I think Robert De Niro is awesome. I
Yeah.
think he's fantastic.
Yeah, no, and
Yeah. So go ahead.
this
Go
is
ahead.
70s De Niro when I mean, I'm not gonna get political here. I'm not. But De Niro was doing something for Joe Biden in New York City this week. And again, not gonna get political, but someone said your movies suck. And it's like, all right, you can have whatever opinion you want about his politics, but that's just factually incorrect. If there's one
Yeah, De Niro's an
if there's
amazing
one
movie.
person you cannot yell that at, it's probably Robert De Niro because he has churned out classics in the 70s, classics in the 80s, classics in the 90s, classics in the 2000s, classics in the 2010s, and with Killers of the Flower Moon now, classics in the 2020s. So he's been doing this for longer than the person chanting at him has probably been alive. So regardless of political beliefs, De Niro, his movies are incredible, and this was not the first time that people saw him, but I think that after this, people realized, oh, this is a guy we need to take extremely seriously, and he does a great job of playing Vito. There's also a great story at the beginning about how his whole family is killed because his father kind of got in the face of this one mafia guy, and he was killed. So then his older brother was killed because it's like, well, he's going to come for revenge. So let's go ahead and kill him. And then the mom does a really stupid move and is like, you see this little 9-year-old boy, he couldn't hurt a fly. Don't please don't kill him. And it's like, why would you bring him to the front door of this mafia person? I get what you're trying to
Yeah,
do.
I
So
don't
then
love.
she comes out with a gun, but they kill her, and this little 9-year-old boy is in goes in hiding, and he escapes. Hey, if you're gonna escape, leave the damn country as a 9-year-old. You know what? Especially in
Yeah,
1917, they're never gonna find you. You know, this isn't today where at a drop of a hat, maybe someone can be in that. No, I think you're good as far as never getting caught by the people looking for you. And he kind of starts getting into the world of crime where there's this guy. What was the guy's name? Don Fanucci. Don Fanucci. Yeah,
yes,
he's
yes,
kind of the one
Benucci.
that's like, hey, you owe me this much money for protection and uh this that and the other, and he kind of gains the respect of the guy, but the guy is also still like, you owe me this much money because this is just kind of the way that things work around here. I'm the one that runs things.
Not to turn this into something else and political, I guess, kind of, but it almost feels like when people get to when people defect from Cuba, like you kind of owe me after like helping you get defected from Cuba. Like you there's a price to pay. Like you owe me for what I just did for you. It's kind of a similar vibe. It's like I got you to America, like you owe
Hmm.
me. Kind of thing, which is very very odd. But yeah,
I
continue.
really
Sorry.
liked the guy that played Don Fanucci. I thought he did a great job of kind of selling that like
Yeah, I thought he did
kind of like
too.
local scumbag with power. He kind of like carried himself as that
Yeah,
his shit was golden,
which to
and
be honest, if you're smuggling humans across the the world business, you're probably a
yeah.
scumbag. But yeah, just putting that out there.
Um and so he's kind of offered a job, but uh Vito's like, again, there's a little bit of that Michael parallel from the first movie. Vito is not just happy with the kind of being a small fish. He doesn't want to be an enforcer, and he kills. He just kind of, there's this great scene where he's kind of like stalking his prey, so to speak, and he's walking on rooftops and then kind of following him throughout like this like was it like a parade or something, and then back into his apartment and shoots him right there. It's a fantastic scene, and then you see the beginning of things where Vito is, hey, I'm gonna help people out. I'm gonna help this old lady. kind of keep her apartment, and I'm gonna kind
Yes,
of
that scene
yeah.
is incredible.
Uh, he's like, well,
Do you want to dive deeper into that?
go for
Because
it.
I think, yeah, I just think this lady basically comes and goes like, I'm about to get evicted from this apartment because my I guess her daughter like was keeping a dog with her for her son because the son liked the dog, and they weren't supposed to have a dog in the apartment. And basically, the landlord's like, get rid of the dog, or I'm evicting you. And then they didn't get rid of the dog, and he's like, I'm evicting you. And so then so then Vito comes to the landlord and is like, uh, I'm friends with this person. Can you like let them stay in the apartment? What do you, and he's like, I've already sold the apartment to someone else. Like I'd look like an ass if I came back and kind of went back on my word. And he's like, and plus they're paying more in rent. And he's like, all right, how much more? Like, what do you want? And he's like, $5 a month. And he's like, oh, okay, here's an advance. And he gives him like a ton of money. And he's like, here's a 6-month advance. Come to me in 6 months for another advance when you need it. And then the guy's like, oh, I can't do this. Like, this is dirty money. And Vito goes like, no, take the money and ask around about my name and who I am,
Mhm.
and then come back to me. And that is the next part that happens after that is an incredible scene where the landlord comes busting into Vito's like office space and is like, have your money back. Like they can live in the apartment. They can stay in the apartment. Like I don't need your money. Like it's fine. And then Vito just keeps looking over to his, I guess, his consigliere, right? Or his advisor. I don't even know if I guess they would technically call him that. This is like the very, very,
It's at the very beginning, so it
you
might
would
not be
say
quite
the
that formal
beginning
yet. Yeah.
operations. Yeah, the beginning operations of Vito's work. But he just keeps looking over at him like, are we sure? And then the guy's like, oh no, no, no. They can pay less now. I'll lower their bid. Like five
I
dollars.
did think
And
that was
Vito
very
looks
funny.
back over. And Vito looks over. He's like, no, $10. I'll take $10 off of the
Yes,
monthly rent.
yes.
I'm just like, I can't. It's just, and the guy is like fumbling to get out of the office space because like they lock the door behind him, but it's like they're not keeping him in there. They're just like it's just a very frustrating door to like
It
unlock.
reminded
And so
me
this guy is just like stammering and stuttering, like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." And it's like, what did he hear about Vito that made him go like completely
the scene
scared
with the
to this
door
place?
reminded me a lot of, and obviously I know that this came first, but it reminded me a lot of that scene from Joker
Yeah.
where the little
Yep.
person is like trying to get out after uh Arthur just killed someone, and he's like, I can't reach the door, man. And you're like, is he like fucking with them, or is that just like a, oh, let me get the door, and then he goes and gets the door, and he leaves, but it's like
Right,
a little
right.
moment of tension. I liked that. Um, and
Yeah,
then
no, I did too. But basically, what did he hear about Vito that made this
he
guy
heard
go like,
things,
"Okay,
Brandon.
you can have all the money back"? Like, actually, I'm gonna lower the
Yeah,
rent. It's just so funny. But
actually,
go ahead,
I'm
continue.
gonna pay rent. You know, uh, but
Yeah, yeah.
but then you get the scene that kind of ties things back from the beginning of the movie where he goes to he goes back to Sicily to Don Chicho, who was the guy from the beginning of the movie, and kind of was asking something about olive oil. I don't remember the particulars, but um
Extra virgin.
yeah. Um and it leads to him stabbing him to death, avenging his family, and it's a very full circle moment. But it was also like, yeah, that guy knew exactly, if I leave anybody in this family alive, someone's gonna try to come after me. So we got to kill them all. And you failed, buddy. You didn't do it. So you got one to the neck. Um,
Got one. You got
yeah.
basically.
So now let's
So
go back to Michael. The family is in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Kind of what the end of the first movie was setting up. let's leave New York and let's get things going in Nevada where we can get involved with casinos and gambling
We can
and
get that
hotels.
leisure and yeah, leisure and recreational activity.
Yeah.
My
And again, it kind of starts, was it a wedding or was it just like a get together? I think it was a wedding of
I think it was a
um
wedding. It was like a parallel,
yeah,
basically.
but you get this guy. First of all, you get the Rosado brothers coming in, and they work for this guy Hyman Roth, who's a longtime partner with the Corleones, and this senator, Pat Geary, I think it was his name. Um,
Yep.
and he at first they're basically like, look, we need your help getting these these licenses for these casinos, and he's just basically like, I fucking hate Italians. I don't like you. I don't want anything to do with Italians. I don't like what you do. And I'm gonna make things
A lot of
I'm
racism
gonna make
there,
things
but
more
yeah.
difficult for you. And it's like, okay,
Right.
I know that that's not gonna end particularly well for him. And Michael's just like, look, I think that not only should you help us with the license, but you should pay for it yourself. And that does not go well. Um, so then the next night, you get an assassination attempt, or rather, that same night. It was not the next night. The very same night, you get an assassination attempt on Michael, but no one.
Shoots him right in his bedroom. Tries to kill him in his where his wife
Yeah.
sleeps.
Um,
Unreal.
but he's talking to his consigliere, Tom Hagen, saying like, "Hey, I think that there's a there's a traitor in the family. You know, there's a mole or something like that." Um,
A
but
rat.
he immediately suspects Hyman Roth. And so you get Michael's kind of like smarts in trying to pit people against each other, or at least like the whole keep your friends close but your enemies closer definitely comes.
Which is
And again, this is another one of those lines that you've heard, but when you see them in the context of the movie, you understand why they've become iconic.
right, exactly. No, that's probably the most iconic line from the two films, right?
Yeah, it's
I mean,
something like that, or take the gun, leave the cannoli, or leave the gun, take the cannoli. There's a lot.
yeah, yeah,
There's a lot of them
there
in
is.
this. Make him an offer he can't refuse, which comes
Yep.
up again in this. But he's talking to Hyman Roth, who's just this old Jewish guy sitting on his sitting in his in his house watching football.
Hey, he likes Southern Cal football.
Yeah.
What can we say?
Was this no,
Go
it was a little
Trojans!
bit before OJ Simpson, right?
It might have been OJ
Because
Simpson. If
this
we're
was in
being,
the
being real.
late 1950s. So I think he might have
Oh no,
just
no, it
missed
wasn't. No, it wasn't.
he yeah,
He just missed the OJ
yeah.
Simpson
The
days. Oh man, he would have
the
been.
juice wasn't
He would have
loose
been
just
a.
yet.
He would have been a. He would have definitely been a USC fan if he had seen those days. I mean, that guy was running all over people. Okay, anyway.
Um
Um. Yeah. I mean, but Mike knows what he's doing. Like he gets it. He gets it. You know, he knows that Hyman is involved. He knows that he put out the hit on him, but he's gonna play the sides of the coin like, oh, we're still buddy buddy, we're partners. Like we'll do this together. And I believe Roth has a great line where he goes like, what we're gonna do together, your father wouldn't even have imagined. And Michael's thinking in the back of his head, like, yeah, I'm killing
yeah.
you, you piece
Yeah,
of
he wouldn't
shit.
imagine that I'm going to kill
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but yeah, I mean, then we get the Cuba scenes where they go to Cuba together. Um, which by the way, I really like when they do that. Like they kind of separate it, and really, I think Coppola, and this goes back to the first film as well. Like I think he just does a great job of like compartmentalizing the film into
Yes.
these different like sections,
Hmm.
and that's where you really appreciate like, okay, this is Mike going to Florida, this is Michael going to Cuba with
But
Hyman
it's all
Roth,
well
this is,
connected, you know?
Lake
It doesn't
Tahoe,
feel
but
like
it all ends up being connected at the
yes.
end, which is really impressive.
It's great work. I mean, it's great writing for one. I mean, him, Mario Puzo worked really well together on this script. I mean, we talked about all the iconic lines, but even without those,
Makes me want to read the book
yes, it
now. It
does,
makes me want to read.
because
Yeah,
it was a best selling book, and that's why
as it
they were like,
should be. I
hey, this
mean,
might be a safe bet type of thing, but it also pissed off a lot of people that you don't want to piss off, and so they had to smooth things out with those people before they can make the first one,
mm,
and then the first one was such a
yeah, that makes sense.
runaway success that they're like, all right, let's make part two, and
I wonder. I wonder if the people who were involved, and I don't want to speak out of turn because I don't know the mafia world, Italian mafia. I'm not here to speak for them, but I wonder if some of them were sitting there going like, "Man, that actually makes what we do look exceptionally cool." Like I kind of want them to make another movie. You know what I
hey,
mean?
yeah, like, can I be in part two?
Like,
I'll,
right?
I'll play me.
Exactly. Like
Uh, no,
I'm sure they don't like their business being put out there like that, but like to be fair, it kind of makes it look cool. So that's just me speaking. I'm not like saying that it's right or wrong. Like you do your own business, but like it does it does give it like an edge of cool, which whatever. I just wanted to point that out that like maybe they had less quarrels with like the script writing and all this stuff or the movie being made after they saw part one and they were like, oh, like that was a really cool movie. When's part two coming out?
yeah.
Like, I wonder if they were the first in line to go see part two. Or they're like, can we get an advanced copy of this movie? Like,
Let
yeah.
let's get
But
let's
anyway,
get
keep
back
going.
to that dumbass Fredo, which
Oh yeah,
I
I mean, let's talk
watching this
about it.
movie, I don't know if you remember, I don't remember the Cuomo brother that used to work for CNN. Someone called him Fredo in a bar, and he like went off on someone because he's like,
Well, yeah,
Fredo.
because I feel like
He,
that's such a
well, he
disrespectful thing
said,
to
well,
say to
he took it
someone.
a level further. That he said that Fredo is the N word for Italians, which no, um, to quote
Yeah, but kind
no,
of a little bit.
no,
No, I mean it's not. It's
to,
not. It's not.
to,
But
to
you know what I
quote
mean. Like
to
I mean,
quote John Mulaney, if there's two bad words and you won't even say the other word, that one's worse.
right.
So yeah,
That one's
exactly.
worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, no, I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying as an Italian American, imagine being called Fredo.
I
That's
understand.
gotta be a little
Yes,
bit disrespectful.
it
Gotta be a
is
little bit
definitely an
disrespectful.
offensive term, especially if you have a brother that was doing well at the time. But the thing is, this guy at first he's kind of been doing some shady stuff too, and he has to pretend he knows this guy Johnny Ola, who's like the fixer, the right hand man for
I
Hyman
kept
Roth.
thinking his name was Johnny Oil or Johnny Olive. I just kept.
See,
I know
I
it
had
was
the
Ola,
subtitles
but
on, so that helped me out.
yeah. No, I had the subtitles on too, but I was thinking in the back of my head, I was like, Johnny Olive. I was like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, Johnny Olive in the
But yeah,
pickle
go ahead.
band. Ola, and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I don't know this guy. Hey, how are you? I've never met you before." And then later, he stupid.
It's so
It's
bad. It's
horrible. He's like, "Y'all know
but
each other, don't you?"
the character who plays Fredo pulls it
Yeah,
off like
he
so
does a
well.
great
It's
job
like
of playing like this
I
stupid
I
fucking idiot.
ruined
That
yeah, I
thinks
ruined it.
that
Like
thinks that he's not. I love the
right.
way that he played the actor
I commit I
John
commend it.
Cazale or Cazali, great job. He did fantastic work. But the thing is, this guy later, they're like bowling or something, and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I like that. You like this certain kind of wine. I remember that from that time when we were." And Michael's just like, "You dumbass, you just outed yourself. I had a feeling, but you just outed yourself as you know,
As the
yeah."
rat.
And so you have this great scene where uh well, first of all, they try to kill both of them. Ola's killed, but oh sorry, Ola's not killed. Am I remembering this correctly? I don't I remember that Roth, the guy tried to smother him with a pillow, and then
Mhm. It
yeah,
didn't work.
because the Cuban soldiers come in and shoot him in the damn head. But what happened with Ola?
Mhm.
Did they get him?
I don't. I don't believe so. I just saw this movie like two
Yeah,
days
I mean, there's
ago,
a lot of details in
and I
this,
still.
so
Yeah, the problem is the
I
details
think
are so
they get
rich. I
no, they
want to
got they
say that
got Olaf.
Ola survived.
Yeah, they got Olaf,
Oh
but they
no, no, he
didn't
does. That assassination attempt. They didn't get Hyman. They didn't get
They didn't
Hyman.
get Hyman, and they
Yeah.
didn't get because earlier in the movie, uh, they try to get the Rosados try to get Pantangeli, and they didn't get him because a cop walked in to the
Yes, because
restaurant.
Patanjali obviously walked. Yeah,
Yeah, so
obviously comes up later.
that's two
Patanjali comes
guys
up
that they
later.
try to get killed that didn't get killed, which happens a lot in these Godfathers movies.
Which, hold on. I let's just okay. Let's go back to Patanjali. Did Mike like order him to get killed? I don't think he
No,
did. I think it just happened to be like it was the Rosado brothers just like
no, no,
crossed him
yeah,
and
that was a Hyman
and
Roth
Mike
thing.
eh, yeah, and potentially thinks that like Michael crossed him, which comes up later as like a whole like thing later on in the movie. But go ahead. I just wanted to like clarify
You
that
get
because in my head I was thinking like Mike didn't cross him, right? But it looks like he crossed him based off the
you get a
situation.
great scene, that whole that scene on New Year's Eve where Michael grabs Fredo and he's like, I know it was you broke my heart. And Fredo's just looking there kind of like, I might be a dumbass, but I know that I can't get out of this. But then
Side note:
go ahead.
good for AMC to get rid of that quotes ad at the beginning where that's probably the worst quoted part in that entire ad when I forget who the actor is, but he turns to the person and yells, "You broke my heart, Fredo." I'm like, I
Oh,
hate
the
that
Regal
Regal
ad,
ad, first of
yes.
all.
Man,
Thank God they
that
got rid
thing
of
was
that.
awful. And
But
that was probably like the best quote of the whole, like, and it was so bad. It was
right, of the whole
so
yeah.
bad.
It was delivered poorly.
Hey, you got, oh my
It
God.
was
I just
awful.
want to like, I want to shoot myself in the
Uh,
head thinking about
okay,
it. It's
okay,
so bad.
but
But getting back to the movie,
no, no, no.
yes, no, it's. Thank you for
Yes.
bringing up
I just
a memory that
I
I had
just
repressed.
I had never I hadn't seen Godfather Part 2 in like forever. So like I knew the Fredo part was from Godfather
Yes,
Part 2, but I just didn't make the connection until I was watching this movie and I was like, "Oh my god, that's where that quote, like that's the scene it comes from." I'm like, I can't." But
but
yeah.
maybe the funniest scene in either of these movies to me is earlier. They come across the senator who is like next to a dead prostitute and like doesn't know what happened, and they're like, yeah,
I mean,
we'll
we all know what
okay,
happened.
exactly, but we they're like, hey, we'll take care of this, just take care of your old friends, the Corleones, right? And then you get this Senate committee that things are kind of leading to, and they're kind of they're talking bad about the family. They're like, hey, you did this, that, and the other. And the senator, this guy just stands up. He's like, I just want to tell you guys that they're doing a great job. There's nothing wrong with them. And I really just want to say that I love Italian people. I think Italian people are the best. They're some of the hardest working people. They're the backbone of the American. I just love Italian people. And I just thought that was so funny compared to where he was at the beginning of the movie, because he knows it's like, yeah, they got me out of a jam, but also you watch this guy and you're like, all right, what'd you do? You're kind of going a little above and beyond here. What'd you do? Why are you doing this? What did you do with the Corleone family? Um, which I thought
Right,
was
right,
very
right.
funny to me personally.
So so I don't think it's ever explained, but someone in the Corleone connections kills that prostitute, right?
I don't
To like
know.
put him. I mean, I'm gonna go with that's the thing. Is they basically
And
killed the
drug
prostitute
him.
and drug him to like frame him for it and like get him on their side. I'm gonna go with
It makes
that's
sense.
the thing. I don't think it's ever explained, but to be honest, I don't think that senator just like randomly killed this
No,
prostitute
I'm
as
leaning
well.
towards that as well, but I could be
Or
wrong.
or I should say, let's be politically correct. Sex worker.
This was back in the 50s. She was a prostitute, but you know, yes, I
I'm
get what you're
kidding. Go
saying. I
ahead.
get what you're saying. Um, well,
I feel bad for her
well,
because like she just
cause
gets
she's
caught up
dead.
in
Yeah, I
like
feel bad
this.
for her too. Um,
Well, she gets caught up in this. She gets caught up in this plot. Like, what? Like, I'm just out here trying to make some money. Like,
you
what are
got a
you doing?
great
Like, but
scene with
anyway,
Michael
go
and
ahead.
Fredo where Michael is basically just saying, "Look, I don't care what you didn't know. I don't care what was offered to you. Again, you took sides against the family. I
You're
you,
dead to me.
you're dead to me. I don't want to see you ever again." And he tells, I don't remember who he tells, but he was saying,
When you're gonna visit mom,
"Yes,
when you're gonna
give me
visit
at least
mom, like let me know a day in
so I won't be
advance
there."
so I
I'm
won't
like,
be
man,
there. I'm like,
that
oh
is
no,
harsh. And then I don't want
that
him
is
harmed
oof.
while my mother is alive. Is yeah.
Clemenza,
And
Clemenza, right? That's who it was.
that's
Yeah, yeah.
basically saying, yo, as soon as my mom dies, kill this motherfucker. Like like might as well have just said that
Yeah,
outright. Um
and yeah. And then let's jump to like that scene, right? Or like let's jump to Connie like begs Michael for like forgiveness and is like, you have to let Fredo back in the
yeah.
family. Like he's nothing without you. And so then at their mother's funeral, he hugs Fredo and he gives
And
Clemenza the look.
it's like, "Yeah,
You
I'm gonna
know.
give you this gesture of goodwill, and by that I mean I'm gonna give you the fuck off, and I'm gonna yeah, you're gonna be out on this little boat, and
I think the best call or like call back or just like thing in the movie or like one of the best is when Fredo and Michael's son are fishing together, and Fredo goes like, "Oh, you know how I catch on my fist? I say Hail Mary as I'm like throwing the rod
mhm,
out to like catch the fish." And then they're in the boat together, Clemenza and Fredo, because they're like fishing in the middle of the lake. And he starts like praying like Hail Mary, like all this stuff, and then he gets
yeah.
shot. And I just thought that was like a really cool like callback, and that scene is shot so like well, where it's like
It's almost
distance.
shot like a horror movie, and I really like that.
Yeah, yeah, I did too. Not sorry to jump ahead, but I felt like it was good to like wrap up the Fredo
Mhm.
line, uh, kind of. But yeah, Fredo dies. If people don't know, Mike puts out the hit on Fredo, kills him.
You got the great.
Which
I feel like I've
he
said that
should.
a lot in this podcast. You got the great scene. Yeah, there's a lot of great scenes. I can't think of any that aren't. But
So to jump, should we jump back to the Senate hearing?
Pantangeli,
Because like really, the biggest thing is
Pantangeli,
Patangeli.
he does the that Dark Knight scene where he's basically just like he's a nobody. He doesn't do anything. They're like, yeah, no, Michael doesn't do it. He's got this protection from the FBI, and they're like, Pantangeli,
He's like, oh,
if he's gonna
I just said his
yeah,
lie.
if he goes and tells everyone, then there's nothing that we can do because he's under FBI protection. We can't do anything about that. And potentially, it's just like I don't I no nothing. There's nothing there.
I made all that
Yeah,
up. Yeah, I made all that
yeah. It
up.
just
Yeah.
sounded good, you know.
So they I will say they bring in Patangeli's brother from Italy.
Yeah.
He sits right next to Michael. Michael's definitely whispering stuff to him in like
Mm,
Italian, like this is what's going on. This is what's going on. Patangeli definitely like as soon as he saw his brother, flipped a switch and was like, I can't
yeah.
do this. Can't can't like rat on Michael. Can't rat him out. Because if I rat out Michael,
That's my brother's ass.
then but it's just like that's like loyalty too. Like I I I think potentially it's too prideful and like loyal to really do that. Even though for what about the 4 months he was thinking about
I
flipping
like
on
that
Michael
actor a
for
lot,
like
by
four
the way.
months.
Michael V. Gazzo is the guy's name. He did a really good job.
Yes, and then after that scene, I think the two biggest scenes I could be misremembering, but one of the bigger scenes is when Hagen goes to visit potentially in like the I guess prison, right? Is where he is. I don't even know what is he technically in FBI protection still. I
I
don't
don't
really
know.
know. Yeah, I don't know either. But he goes and visits him. They're like having a cigars together, like walking around outside, and they start talking about like the Roman Empire and how it's connected to how they brought about like this crime family and like the idea of like capos and regiments and all this stuff and officers and potentially goes like, man, those were the good old days. And Hagen's like, yeah, it used to be great. And then they kind of have like this unspoken but spoken logic behind it, where it's like, yeah, when all those senators tried to kill Caesar, or like whatever happened, maybe it wasn't Caesar, but like when they tried to overthrow the government and it didn't work, like this is what these Roman officials did. Some of them went and basically committed suicide and killed
To
themselves.
save their
But when they
families.
did that, their families they saved their families. And Hagen looks at him and goes like, "It was nice seeing you, friend. Like I'll see you again." And it was basically like, "All right, now you're gonna go sit yourself in a bathtub and cut
Yeah, do a
yourself
13
open." And
reasons why, you know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the most powerful scenes because it's almost an unspoken spoken thing where you kind of knew potentially was going to do that, but like Hagen was also saying like, look, if you do this, like your family's safe. Like we're not going to mess with your brother, we're not going to mess with your other parts of your family. Like you're good, man. Whereas like I think potentially wasn't completely sold on like if Michael was going to attack his family or not, which I think is
Mhm.
respectable. But yeah, what else do you
Oh,
want to touch on?
as the same with the first one, you're missing a giant. Maybe the thing that got me the
Yeah, you're
most
right.
with this movie was when they're in Cuba. Kay
I just wanted to get you
Kay's
going.
pregnant, and Michael finds out
Yeah,
that
yeah.
hey, Kay miscarried, and so when he gets back to the
Well, turns out.
when we get back to the states, Kay and Michael have let's call it a conversation, and Kay is mad as hell. He's like, I'm taking the kids and I'm gone. I didn't, I'm not doing this. I don't want our kids growing up like this. I've had enough. And Michael was basically like, you don't think that I would use the absolute all of my power to keep you from taking my children? No, no, you're sticking around. This is not a discussion. And Kay is just like, "Hey, I want you to know that
She drops the
I didn't
bomb of
I did
all
not have a
bombs.
miscarry. I had an abortion. I did not want you to have another son. It was not happening. No." And Michael just like smacks the shit out of her, banishes her from the family, and is like, "I'm taking the kids. This is not happening." Um and it's fully it comes like the Michael from the beginning scene of The Godfather is dead. He's not no,
Oh
that
yeah.
that guy is long gone, and it's incredibly well acted by Diane Keaton as well as Al Pacino, because one of my
Mm-hmm.
big complaints with this movie, or I say big complaints, I mean quite fucking minor, um, is that I wish Diane Keaton had a little bit more to do because she is such a talented actress, and so I wish they would do more with her. And I'm surprised that Talia Shire
I
got an
think
Oscar
that's
nomination for this movie and Diane Keaton did not.
yeah, that is shocking. But I will say both of them are very
Oh,
good.
there's not a bad
Connie
person in this
is a
movie.
very good character. Yeah, Connie's a very good character. I will say for Diane Keaton, I personally think it was a directorial decision and a script decision to keep her like away from the movie because that's how she
Or
felt
and that's
in
how
real
Michael
life.
kind of kept things. Yeah,
Right.
no, I
So
good
I
call. Good
understand
call.
it is what I was kind of getting at.
It's not that I don't
Yeah, I
understand It's more of just, man, Diane Keaton's a really good actress, and I would have liked to see her more.
Diane Keaton's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
It
Yeah, Diane Keaton is awesome. Yeah, that's the biggest bomb drop because it's like, oh wow, like, but also this goes back to Kay as well as a character. If she had came to Michael after he had done all of this stuff, and she came to him and said, "Hey, look, I respect what you do. I respect you as a person, but like you getting caught up in all this crime stuff, that's not gonna fly with me. I want a divorce." Do you really think Michael would
no.
have been like fuck you? Like
I
Kay almost went too deep into like she got herself so far deep into it that at one point she didn't want to have Michael's son, but she couldn't like just come to Michael before all of that. I guess Michael had been too far gone at that
I
point, but it's just like I don't. I imagine the character from when we first see Michael to the ending of The Godfather. If she had come to Michael and been like, "Look, I can't be in this relationship anymore," I highly doubt that character would have been like fuck you, like actually we're staying married and like you're still my wife. Like I just I doubt that.
there's
And I wanted to get your opinion on that because I doubt that character he
well,
would
there's a
do
scene
that.
in the
I guess
first
is what I'm
movie
getting at.
where they're talking at this wedding, and Al Pacino or Michael Corleone is basically saying, um, talking about this one business deal, and he made him an offer he can't refuse. That either his signature would be on the paper or his brains would. And there comes a point where I feel like if Kay was willing to go with that and willing to, when you're with someone, regardless of, when you're in a committed relationship with someone, whether you kind of mean to or not, you do kind of end up marrying the family. And if you're if
No,
you're
that's fair.
if
No,
you're
that is
willing to
true.
continue going with that, then I think that that was kind of the first stepping off point, and then everything else afterwards kind of just happened. And there maybe came a point.
Yeah, I guess once she accepted that and then she accepted Carlo getting killed,
Yeah,
I mean, she knew that she had to have
yeah.
known. Like in her heart of
I'm
hearts,
not
she had
saying
to have
that
known that
that
Michael
that she
ordered that kill.
wasn't right for wanting to leave and take the kids, not at all, but I'm saying that I think that there came a point of, okay, I'm willing to go with this.
No
I don't
return.
know about no return,
Yeah,
but just a
there's no
point of
point.
like, if I can accept this, when does the ball stop rolling?
But if she's getting to the point where she'll have an abortion,
That's the point where the ball
like
stops rolling,
willingly,
when
then
you're like,
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
point where she goes, "Oh my god, I've been willing to go with all of this. I need to get out of this and protect my children."
Mhm.
Oh, and
No,
also,
I just find it fascinating because she's a fascinating like character in terms of how she's portrayed and how she's on screen.
Hyman
But
Roth gets killed.
I mean, yeah, yeah,
Hyman
Hyman
Roth
Roth stuff.
returns to the
Which
country.
one of the classic lines. He's as guarded as it would be like killing the president. And Michael goes, "If you haven't found out by now, anyone can be killed."
Yeah,
And I was like, "Yeah, that's a badass line." I was like, "This guy's literally about to kill him." I was like,
that
"That's
bring
a
that brings me
crazy,
back to a line
crazy
from the
thing."
first one where her and Kay were having a conversation about like, well, that's ridiculous. That'd be like if the senator or a president like got kind of commanded someone to be killed, and Michael was like, "Who's the one being naive now?" Basically implying like, yeah, that happens. Like that's
Right,
part of
right,
this world.
exactly.
Um,
Right. I just find that line so fascinating where he goes, "You really doubting that we can kill him?"
yeah, and
It's like I was like, "Oh, we've got to
they
be."
shoot this man in the airport. Now that is something that is going to be dramatically different and harder to do 50 years later due to TSA. But I imagine in the early to mid 70s, or I guess this took place in the 50s, that might have been a little easier.
Well, the plot to kill him is actually pretty genius. someone acts like they're in the media scrum as a
Yeah.
reporter. Comes up to him and goes, "Bang! All right,
What are your
we
thoughts
got
on this,
you."
bitch? Like, just shoots him dead.
Yeah. Um,
Do you
that's
have any comments?
well
Yeah.
executed plot. Well executed plot. Yeah,
And
yeah.
then the final scene,
Um,
you get um it got like a
God, such a good scene.
a flashback to the day that Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, and Michael kind of announces.
Christmas, right? Or
No,
like
it's the
Christmas
what's
time.
around
Yeah,
Christmas
it's
time.
December 7th. Yeah, yeah,
Michael's
December
like,
7th.
"Hey, I've
Sorry.
dropped out of college. I'm joining the Marines," and Sonny is just pissed about this because he's like, "Yeah, we," because he says something about. Uh, I think Sonny makes a comment of who would be stupid enough to put their country over their family, and Michael kind of says that,
Mm.
hey, I did. And Fredo's the only one that's like, "Hey, Michael, I think that's a really good decision." And uh, Mike,
Yeah, and Sonny's annoyed. He's like, oh, screw this. He's like, I'm gonna go help the kids with the Christmas tree or whatever. Like whatever. He kind of walks away, and Mike is just sitting there by
yeah,
himself. And then one of the best shots is just the like fade into Mike sitting by himself in present time, and it's like, oh, like that's why Francis Ford Coppola
one
is
of the greats.
the
Yeah,
godfather of making these movies. Like to put it nicely, like oh man, it's such a good shot, and
grade this thing,
yeah,
buddy.
I'm with you. Oh, so I don't think it's as high as part one. I do really like it. I still think it's gonna be in my top 10 movies of all time.
Whoa!
Oh gosh, A plus, 91.4.
Wow. Okay, you're higher on
Uh,
two than I am on one.
I
Wow.
love these two movies, man.
Wow. All
I
right.
think it makes me want to give The Irishman like another shot because I do like The Irishman. I'm not here to say I don't like The Irishman, but it makes me want to give The Irishman another
Well,
shot
we'll get to
because these
Scorsese
movies
down the
are
line, but um yeah, man, I did think I love this movie, but this will not be making the Mitchell Lee movie appreciation Hall of Fame. I
no.
gave it an A plus
What do you have to do to get
59.97
50?
is what I arrived at with this. I do think that this movie at times feels a little long, and I don't think.
They give you an intermission.
Yeah, but I'm not taking an intermission at home. Like, although I did think that was cool. I would like to go to a movie with an intermission at some point in my life. But I think that the thing that separated the two of us was I think you liked the stuff with Vito a little more than I did. I still
Yeah,
I
I
still
love the
really
Vito
loved it, but I
stuff.
think that you loved it more than I did. And to
Oh,
make the Mitchell Lee Movie Appreciation Hall of Fame or the
you
MLMA
gotta like all.
HOF, it's got to be an A plus 75% or higher.
Okay,
And so this was
75.
at
Okay.
59.97. This was actually
Wow.
Brandon, you might I don't know what your reaction to this is going to be. This actually came in just a little bit lower than Top Gun Maverick.
I mean, I love Top Gun. I'm the champion of the Top
But
Gun
this is
Maverick
this is
bandwagon.
also.
I I called it. I called it a year and a half
Yes,
before
you
Top
did.
Gun
Yes, you
Maverick
did. Yes,
came
you did.
out.
And you don't like
That movie was
you
going to
don't
be
like
amazing.
letting us forget that fact either. Uh
I don't.
This is a
But
202-minute movie though. So I also don't know if it's going to be something that
yeah,
I go back and rewatch a ton, but it's still just one of the greatest made
well,
movies.
I'm the type of person to sit on a podcast with you for an hour and 40 minutes recording a podcast about The Godfather and Godfather Part 2. So maybe I'm a sicko and I don't really
Have
care
you
about
seen
the runtime. To be fair, I'm probably going to watch Godfather Part 2 and Godfather again in like 2 weeks.
Okay, wow.
Cuz like
Was this your first time
I
seeing
just like
these?
these movies. I just like these movies. I had like seen them in like bits and
Okay.
pieces, but I never sat down and like actually watched them. and maybe that's why I have such a high appreciation of him right now. It's because I actually sat through and like watched the first part. Actually, I'm gonna be honest. Godfather, I fell asleep for like 30 minutes. I woke back up. I rewinded 30 minutes and watched it. So, but I was very tired. I was watching it at like 2 a.m.
That's the problem. That's the
So
problem. Yeah.
yeah, so that's on me. But I did end up watching like Godfather through again. And then yeah, same with Godfather Part Two. There was points where I definitely had to take at intermission. I took a 5 minute break.
You took the intermission. See, I
Yeah, I took
didn't.
a
I
little
powered
5 minute
through.
break. I was like, I took
Maybe
the
I should have
intermission.
taken the intermission. Maybe it would have been
So
higher if I took the intermission.
you should have taken the intermission.
Damn it.
I mean, it's basically Coppola saying to take a
Go
5-10 minute
piss,
break
Like
here. I'm definitely gonna like see if Lindsay wants to like watch them with
nice.
me, because she might like them. She likes crime stuff, so I mean she might not like them, but I love these movies. I think these movies are awesome, and I 100% understand why people have them as like the greatest movies ever. Now, did they reach Shawshank level? Absolutely
they reached
not.
Shawshank level, but they didn't.
They're
They
gonna
didn't
be probably
pass
be in
it.
my top 10.
Like if a movie's in the 90s, I think it
Well,
reached.
I still think
Okay.
yes, sure. No. I guess my point is that like Shawshank, I feel like anytime I turn that
Yes.
movie on, and we kind of touched that on
Shawshank
that
is more
podcast. Anytime I
rewatchable.
turn that movie on, I have to
Yes.
finish it. Whereas like I'm not finishing a movie. If I turn this on with 2 hours and 30 minutes left, I'm not gonna sit there and be like, I have to finish The Godfather.
That's fair.
But it's such an iconic movie. And same with Godfather Part Two. It's not as good though. But I do love the Vito scenes, and I think that's what the separator is. If you, in all actuality, I think the Vito scenes might be as good as the rest
All
of the
right.
movie. So, and that's kind of where I'm at with it. But
All right.
I also like how they did that. Like, I like how Coppola separated it and like showed you Vito and like younger Vito and stuff. I really like that. So yeah, I'm actually really excited to see Part Three. I know other people say that it's like not as good, but like from the half of that movie I saw, I liked Part Three.
Well,
So,
there you go, Brandon.
we'll
That's what we
see.
call a tease. Next up is going to be The Godfather Part 3. I think it's called the.
Is that on
It's
streaming?
on. Yeah,
Sorry
it's on Paramount Plus. I know that. It's a different. I don't know if it's the theatrical version.
Is it not remastered?
I
Is that
think
what
it's
it
a
is?
recut version called The Godfather Coda. But I don't. But that's the only one I can find anywhere. So I guess that's the one we're watching, and it's like 3 hours long. But I am excited to watch it. I've heard things, but I also know that it's Al Pacino, Francis Ford Coppola, so I have high expectations still. We'll see how it goes. But it's the next up is going to be Godfather Part 3, and then one I'm even more excited for is Francis Ford Coppola's other 90s classic, Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is I have never seen it, but I've heard nothing but great things about it regarding everything but Keanu Reeves, and I can't wait to talk about that. So that's next up. Brandon, thank you for, first of all, glad that you enjoyed these movies, glad that you got to watch them. If you have not watched The Godfather or Godfather Part 2, well, congratulations. We just ruined everything in the movie for you. Maybe you should have thought about that before you listened to our podcast and watch these movies first instead. But, go give these movies a second chance. If you watched them, maybe didn't like them very much, or whatever the case may be. Or if you love these movies, watch them again because they're some of the best movies made, I think, ever. And Brandon certainly seems to agree. We'll be back hopefully sooner than we were with the gap between Tarantino and Coppola for Godfather Part 3 and Bram Stoker's Dracula. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.